everyone, welcome to the Books of Morgan. I'm Morgan and today I'm doing my July wrap-up. Now as you can see, I don't have my bookshelf behind me anymore. I actually just moved and it's kind of a long story, but I'm staying in my uncle's apartment. I'm unemployed, the pandemic sucks, so my lease was up at my old place. I just moved to neighborhoods. I'm still very much in Chicago. I'm actually closer to the lake now, if that was even possible, but if you hear a lot of traffic noise, it's because Lakeshore Drive is really close to where I'm living, so I apologize for that in advance. But I do have all of my unread books with me in this apartment, so I will be getting plenty of reading done. All of my other read books are in storage, so yeah, I'm gonna get started. I have all the books that I've read in the month of July and I'm going to review them now. I actually had one ARC and one audiobook that I also read, but I don't have physical copies of, which is fine. I'll start with those first. So my first ARC ever I read through NetGalley, and I'm trying to build my profile so that I can get approved for a lot of different books. So I just selected one of these books that was free to review for anyone. You didn't have to request it, was just given to you. And that was The Broken Heart's Honeymoon by Lucy Dickens. And I give this 2 out of 5 stars. I did not care for it at all. So essentially this young woman, I guess she's in her 20s, she's engaged to this guy, and a week before their wedding he wants to see other people, and she's like, no, not cool with me, we're not in an open marriage. So that's over, that's canceled. So when she's canceling all of her wedding plans, all the flowers and the venue and everything, she also has to cancel her honeymoon. But she was really excited to go on her honeymoon. She was going to Japan for a whole month, and she decided she didn't want to lose out on all that money and just go on her honeymoon by herself. So she goes to Japan for a month, and I like the premise of this book. I think this is a really interesting idea. The problem with it is that it was sold as this Eat, Pray, Love, but Japan kind of thing, and it was not at all that. I think the book lacked some serious editing. I think that it needed to be expanded, and I think there were just too many ideas in one book. And you know how books are supposed to show, not tell? Well, this book told, not showed. So that was a really annoying thing to me, and yeah, I didn't like the writing style, but I gave it 2 stars because I really liked the premise of it. I liked where the story was going. If I were an editor, I have so many ideas on how to improve it, so, but that's just me. And then I also read an audiobook. This was the first full audiobook I've read. I've read books and kind of jumped in between the physical copy and the audio copy, but I didn't want to purchase this book. I just wanted to get it from the library, and the only format available was an audiobook, so I was like, alright, I guess I'm gonna read this audiobook. It was for my book club, so one of the people in my book club chose The Wives by Tarryn Fisher, and I am not a thriller person. I don't like thrillers. They're not something that, there's so many people on Bookstagram and BookTube who read all thrillers, and I think that's really awesome, and I try to read different genres, so, and I knew I wasn't a huge thriller person, so that's why I decided to get the audiobook rather than purchasing the book, and I'm so glad I did. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I did enjoy it. I think the writing was really good. I was compelled when I was listening to it, but at the same time I was like, this is literally 9 hours of a crazy person rambling in my ear. It was crazy. The premise essentially is that there's this woman, her name is Thursday, and she is married to this man who has 2 other wives, and it's kind of her grappling with polygamy, and she wants to find out who these other wives are because she doesn't know them, but it turns there's a lot of twists and turns in the story, so I just you have to read it because I don't want to spoil it. With thrillers, it's really hard for me not to spoil it, but the ending, when I was listening to it, I was literally sitting there I can't believe that just happened. So I really liked the ending, but thrillers are just not for me, which is why I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. So yeah. My whole thing is like, if you've read one domestic thriller, you've kind of read them all. And I know it's gonna make a lot of people mad, but like it wasn't for me. Alright, now we're gonna go into my physical books. The first book that I read this month was All the Stars and Teeth by Adeline Grace. This is a YA fantasy novel centered around pirates and magic, and it was so adorable and action-packed and adventurous, and there was some romance sprinkled in. So I really enjoyed this book. Also, I think there's some diverse characters, if I can remember correctly. I just really enjoyed it. It was like a really fun, fast-paced YA fantasy novel. I love pirates, which is why I picked it up. And I liked To Kill a Kingdom, but I also thought To Kill a Kingdom was like kind of dragged on, and I felt like I didn't get the same vibes. I was worried this was going to be like To Kill a Kingdom Part 2, but it wasn't. It was so different. I really liked it. Yeah, the magic system was something that I couldn't really wrap my head around, and I think that there needed to be a little bit more world building, which is why I gave it 4, not 5 out of 5 stars. So I really enjoyed this one, really liked the action, loved all the magic elements, love pirates, so yes, this was a good one. I also read The Giver of Stars by Jojo Moyes. This was another book club pick for my book club. I read 2 book club picks in 1 month because I was just really on top of book club books, but this was chosen by a different person, and this is an historical fiction novel set in the Great Depression era, and it follows Alice, who married this Kentucky man while he was visiting her in England, and she comes back to Kentucky. She comes to Kentucky for the first time, and she just really doesn't fit in. And they're like in the back country, like Appalachia, Kentucky, not like Louisville or Lexington or anything like that. They're like in rural Kentucky. And she finds her belonging in this group of women who take these mules around poor areas in Kentucky and deliver library books. I gave this one 4.5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed this. I was all about this book. The reason that I gave it 4.5 and not 5 out of 5 stars was because of one scene. There's a courtroom scene in this particular book, and it was so reminiscent of Where the Crawdads Sing. Like, I was just getting flashbacks, and I was thinking this is just too close to it, and I just I couldn't give it a full 5 out of 5 stars just because I think it lacked some creativity. Now, I know a lot of other people don't like this book because it is reminiscent of the Troublesome Woman of the Book Woman of Troublesome Creek, which is another like Kentucky library book. So I know that those are basically like the same things, and I've heard that one's better, so I do want to read it because I really enjoyed the story in this one, and I liked the aspect of going in through Appalachia and meeting all these different people. I thought it was so cool and interesting. And then I wanted to read a short book. I got this collection of poetry called Fierce Fairy Tales by Nikita Gill. I read Nikita Gill's other book, or other collection of poetry, and I enjoyed it. I remember really liking it. This one I really didn't like. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. It's literally Rupi Kaur. It's like knockoff Rupi Kaur, if I'm being honest. So like, yeah, I don't know. I liked the idea of like these fairy tales reimagined, but it was just not like something that I as a 22-year-old really liked. I mean, I would have been all about this when I was like 16 or 17, but I think for me it's just one of those like Instagram poem type stuff, so yeah. But I give her credit for trying, and also the cover is really pretty, so she's got that going for her. Then I tackled House of Earth and Blood, Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas. Okay, I have a whole 37-minute video on my channel of me drunk reviewing this book, so I'm not really going to go into it. All you need to know is that I gave this 1 out of 5 stars, and it is the worst book I've read all year. And you guys can attack me in the comments. I don't really care. It's just this book, urban fantasy, is not for me. There's just so many cringy lines. Like, this is all just like cringe. So yeah, I didn't like this one, and I'm very happy to be getting rid of it. The next book I read was actually my favorite book that I read all month. As you can see, like, I've been getting like pretty low ratings to my books, But I have one 5-star book on my like wrap up, and that is Writers and Lovers by Lily King. Oh my god, guys, this book is so amazing. Like, I can't even describe how much I love this book. So I was gripping this book so hard, 2 pages fell out while I was reading, and then I screamed because I was like, no, I want to continue reading this. It wasn't like suspenseful or anything. It's actually very slice of life. Like, it's not very plot driven, but oh my goodness, the writing is so beautiful and I was so compelled by it. It was like a painting I couldn't stop looking at, but it's a book. And it follows this writer who's been working on her book for 6 years. She has a lot of college debt. She's like living in squalor essentially. Like, she's living in her friend's, like, or her brother's friend's garage, which, like, I'm kind of in that spot where I'm like just mooching off my uncle right now. But you know, graduating from college and having student loans is no joke. So like, I feel like this book I was going to be really scared reading because it does deal with student debt and I don't like talking about my student debt. So I thought I was going to be really triggered, but no, it was super relatable. And then she also has 2 well, they say there's a love triangle in here, but I wouldn't say it was super triangular. I feel like she was interested in one guy at first, and then he kind of left town for a bit. So then she started dating this older guy who is also a writer, and they were getting pretty serious, but then things happened. And then the other guy who came back in town, and I'm not going to tell you who she chooses, but she does choose one of them eventually. So like, it's not super triangular. It's just like she's interested in 2 guys and she has to make a decision which one she wants to date, which I feel is a very modern thing. Like, you can date more than one person at a time but not be super serious. I don't know. I feel like it wasn't like scandalous or anything like that. I feel like it was a very normal way to date. And it also takes place in the 90s in New England. So yeah, really loved this. It's very beautifully written. I would compare this to My Feelings of Normal People by Sally Rooney. Like, it's just so good. Last but not least, I read Hunting Prince Dracula by Carrie Maniscalco. I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars. Didn't really care for it, if I'm being honest. But I think that I'm not the intended audience for this book. Again, it's YA. I don't know why I keep reading YA books when I know I don't like YA. I have them on my shelf and I'm like, yep, I want to read YA. Like, I want to read a YA book that really compels me. But I read Stalking Jack the Ripper a couple years ago and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. This one I gave 3 out of 5 stars, and I feel like Stalking Jack the Ripper had a lot of potential in following books and the relationship between Audrey Rose and Thomas Cresswell and all that stuff. But this one for me was just kind of like, I'm not really into the writing style, and maybe it wasn't something that I noticed in the first book, but yeah, I didn't think the writing was super great. Again, it was the telling rather than showing, so that was a big problem here. I don't know if I want to read the next one. I've heard it's not that good, so tell me if I should read the next one, Escaping Houdini. But I read this and finished it, and now I'm done with it. Okay, this follows Audrey Rose, and she's like this female she's a female coroner, and she goes to like forensic school in Romania, and then there's all these murders, and they're trying to figure out who did these murders, and basically all these victims have like blood drained from them and they all smell like garlic, so they're like, oh my god, is Dracula back? But then they use science to figure out it's not actually Dracula, it's someone else committing murder. But yeah, like I said, I feel like 15-year-old Morgan would enjoy this book. 22-year-old Morgan, not so much. Those are all the books I read this month. I'm pretty happy with reading 8 whole books. I hope in August I can read a lot more books and get up on that Goodreads reading goal. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more from me, please hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time. Bye!